You are listening to the voice of the frontline protector here at the Private Officer Beat Radio. Every week you'll hear breaking news, topics of training, information for the industry of security, public safety, and law enforcement. So strap in, hang on, we're about to speed off in this episode of the Private Officer Beat Radio. Hello and welcome to this edition of the Private Officer Beat. Happy July 4th. July 4th, 2022. I'm your host here every week, Rick McCann, founder and CEO of Private Officer International and Armor College. And we've had a lot of great comments about last week's program where we talked about LPRs, license plate readers. And as we kind of work through technology, you're going to find that more and more private security companies and proprietary security companies will embrace technology as part of getting the job done, whether that's LPR, license plate readers, or drones, or robots, or a combination thereof. It's just how things are. And we'll be talking more about that in our upcoming programs. We also have two brand new courses at Armor College that teaches how to implement technology into your business, whether it's a college, a public safety department, a contract security agency, or whatever it might be. This week, we have a lot of things happening. If you have been listening to our radio programs for a while, you probably have heard me speak about the upcoming streaming platform. We are heavily involved in the final phase of that. We're going out to the World Games in Birmingham, Alabama this week to do some video shooting. And we're also going to be in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area, and we'll be interviewing a company there for our Breaking Bread series. And we have so much more. If you're interested in getting involved, please contact helpdesk@privateofficer.com, helpdesk@privateofficer.com. And also remember that you can get involved in everything from being a board member, working in our virtual museum project, which is very cool in and of itself. You can be a advocate and assist security officers injured in the line of duty, and so much more. Helpdesk@privateofficer.com. Also, you can contact our office 24/7 if you see news happening, if you know someone that needs to be recognized and you believe they deserve an award. Helpdesk@privateofficer.com. You can also be part of the conversation. Go to facebook.com/Private Officer International, and over on Twitter, twitter.com/Private Officer. You can also check out our daily news at privateofficerbreakingnews.blogspot.com. Well, something really cool happened last week, a project. See, we have all sorts of projects that we're working on, and last week, a project that we have been working on for about 6 or 8 months came to fruition. We've launched a brand new radio show 3 times a week. It is called Highway 98. This is on the Alabama Gulf Coast between Florida and Mississippi, a beautiful area. And now we have a brand new radio show specifically for that community. We'll be playing a lot of great music. We'll be highlighting indie music as well. So if you are a country music or gospel indie singer, you can send your music to helpdesk at BlueRamMedia.com, BlueRamMedia.com help desk, and we'll play it for you. We have the local news, all of the events that's happening in the area. We talk about the community. We give traffic reports. It's a regular radio station. Of course, it's on the iHeart Radio Network. It's also on 26 other platforms where people can listen to radio shows, podcasts, or even download music. And we're going to be doing some local interviews. We're going to do live remotes on the spot. Now, we had a live remote scheduled just a day or so ago, and we couldn't do that because of the severe weather, thunder, lightning, and we had to reschedule it. But we're so excited. I'm so excited about this new project with the brand new Highway 98 radio, a whole different format than the Private Officer Beat. And we've got another brand new radio that's about to debut called the Frontline Protectors. Again, a whole different platform, a whole different menu, because we're going to be talking with law enforcement, firefighters, EMTs and paramedics, frontline emergency responders, and that includes private security. And we've got a brand new streaming show that's going to be coming out by the same name. So we're plenty busy. We have a lot of things happening, and we need a lot of help. Contact help desk at privateofficer.com. Specifically, we're looking for folks who know how to put together some videos with music and video and so forth. Help desk at privateofficer.com. The streaming network is unique. I'm just blown away. We've been working on this concept for almost 2 years. This is not something that can just be done overnight. It is not something to be thrown together, because it doesn't work that way. You need to get licenses. You need to get video. You need to get the proper people in place. You need to get the platform. It's a lot of work. It's not as simple as throwing something up on YouTube. It's not like that. It's not how it works. Here on the Private Officer Beat Radio this week, of course, we're going to be talking about some of the things that have happened in the news this past week. Several security officers charged in separate shootings again. And this is becoming disturbing. It really boils down to a lack of common sense, a lack of training, and a lack of supervision. On today's program, we're going to be talking about domestic violence. We've talked about this subject a few times in the past, but you may remember a few weeks ago, a security officer was killed, a female victim killed by a suspect in the middle of an apartment complex. We want to look at this, and we want to assess how we can stay safe. Remember, Private Officer International is all about training, giving our frontline employees the tools necessary to do the job. And I believe that a lot of critical mistakes were made during that very situation. And we'll be talking about that on the bottom half of this program. But for the time being, out my window right here, it is storming, and it has been storming in much of the southeast area for days and days, thunder, lightning. Some areas of the southeast have gotten as much as 7 and 8 inches of rain, a lot of localized flooding. It is a problem as well along the Gulf Coast. Several tropical storms now in the works, and it appears that the hurricane season has definitely fired up. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we have a whole lot more to talk about here on the Private Officer Beat Radio. We'll be right back. Across America and here along the Gulf Coast in Baldwin and Mobile counties, more than 75% of all firefighters are volunteers. They spend their time helping others. Around the clock, many of our volunteers respond from home, from work, and from the fire station. But just like businesses all around the country, it's becoming more and more difficult to recruit firefighters. If you want to truly help your community and make a difference, I encourage you to reach out to your local volunteer fire department here along the Gulf Coast or anywhere in the country and volunteer your time today. Unlike 20 or 30 years ago, volunteer firefighters are professional firefighters, professionally trained firefighters, and many times EMTs and paramedics. Please help your community, donate some of your time, and you'll not only make a difference, but you'll feel good about it. I know. I've been a volunteer firefighter, EMT paramedic, and law enforcement most of my life. Please reach out today, and thank you.
What a fantastic day.
What a fantastic day.
The water's like glass.
The water is like glass.
Don't forget the soda.
Don't forget the life jacket.
Who wants the 8 and who wants the 15?
Who wants the inflatables?
What a great day.
To be on the water.
So glad you saw me go over.
That was so funny. When you went over and your life jacket inflated.
Never go out without a life jacket on again.
What a great day we had.
When it comes to wearing life jackets, make the right choice. You're in command. Vote responsibly. This message brought to you by the National Safe Boating Council and the U.S. Coast Guard.
All right, we're back here on the Private Officer Beat Radio. Thank God for the U.S., United States of America, on this 4th of July. Too many times we're all about the cookouts and the fireworks and the parties and the special sales, and all of those have created a lot of smokescreen in front of what this holiday is truly about. We need to be standing together and celebrating this holiday as one nation under God. As security officers and public safety and law enforcement and first responders, it's us that need to be a united front. And I hope that we can all come together, because we're the glue that is holding most of this country together. We're that finger in the dike that's stopping the floods from coming through. While many police departments are understaffed, it's private security, loss prevention agents, private police officers, public safety officers, investigators working for private companies who continue holding it all together and helping to solve many, many crimes. Now, we have begun looking at some cold cases of security officer murders. And just this past week, police in 2 different communities did make arrests of suspects in the murders of 2 security officers. We were not involved in those cases, but we are looking at a number of cases. That is one of the shows that we'll be producing and bringing to you on the new Frontline Protectors streaming network. If you have any ideas of cases we can look into or shows that we should produce, things that we should do, contact Help Desk at privateofficer.com. Remember, right now, you can become a member of Private Officer International, a lifetime member with more than 50 member benefits. All that you have to do is go to privateofficer.org. Right there on the top, there's a little button that's flashing. It'll bring you to our specials page. And for $99, you can become a lifetime member right now. We run these specials several times a year to give security officers and others an opportunity to become a member of a growing international private security and law enforcement organization, and we really do support you. I know sometimes we talk negatively about something that a security officer has done. We do the same about law enforcement, fire, and EMS. It's not really that we're trying to be negative, but we are critiquing so that we learn from it. And if we learn from our mistakes, then that's going to help everybody all the way around. The Private Officer Memorial Services are back on the road this year. We're looking for company owners, businesses, churches, and schools to support this national, and it's going to include Canada possibly, but we need people like you to support these memorial services. You can be a benefactor by promoting them, by donating to help us to have memorial services in your area, to provide space. If you need more information, please contact helpdesk@privateofficer.com. We've had a lot of publicity. We've had the governor's office. We've had U.S. and state senators and representatives involved, police chiefs, firefighters, federal agents and officers. All sorts of people have been involved. We have received great recognition through the years from the media. Once they got the press releases, they've attended some of our events. We also was written up in a number of professional magazines, something unheard of before we began doing this quite a few years ago. And this memorial service program that we have every year between September and October recognizes those men and women who give their life, just like law enforcement and fire service personnel do, in the line of duty to protect and serve. This year, we're going to probably hit between 150 and 200 security officers who die in the line of duty. That's similar to law enforcement. I know that right now we have quite a few, well over 50, probably more closer to 75, that have been murdered by gunfire, and a number of others who have been murdered by felonious assault. So please contact us and sponsor a memorial service today. Helpdesk@privateofficer.com. As a business, this is really going to help your community. It opens up the eyes of many in law enforcement and the public at large, the media, people that just don't know really the sacrifices that private security and private law enforcement and other public safety personnel, every day they go out and they sacrifice. They put their life on the line, and we want to recognize them, and we want to educate the community. We have a lot of breaking news to talk about, of course. Today on the radio show, we're going to talk about domestic violence and the dangers, especially right now with the lack of law enforcement and the huge response times that police have in some areas, responding even to the most urgent calls. Staffing obviously is a real problem, and we want you to stay safe. We had a security officer murdered during a domestic situation a few weeks ago. I looked back to see this year alone, we've had somewhere around 15 security officers injured. We'll talk more about that at the bottom half of this program. 15 that were injured during domestic type situations, and maybe even more than that. As you know, oftentimes the press just doesn't feel like it's a major news story. And so when security gets injured or even killed on duty, it's not always a headline news. We're going to take a quick break. We're coming right back here on the Private Officer Beat Radio. Remember, when you see news happen, please send it to helpdesk@privateofficer.com. If you have someone that you'd like to have recognized, someone who deserves an award, helpdesk@privateofficer.com. And, of course, don't forget, be part of the conversation, facebook.com/Private Officer International, and on twitter.com/Private Officer. We'll be right back on the Private Officer Beat Radio. Hey, everyone, you're listening to the voice of the Frontline Protector right here on the Private Officer Radio Network. Now, don't go away, because we are coming right back when we've got a whole lot more right here on the Private Officer Beat Radio.
Life is precious. Ask any of these people. They've been given a second chance at life through organ and tissue donation. But there are more than 84,000 Americans waiting for life-saving transplants. 17 people die every day waiting. I didn't know this until I lost my best friend, Lyric. She gave the gift of life to 5 people. That's why I've become an organ donor, too. One decision saves so many lives. Donate life.
All right, we're sitting over here at the news desk this morning. We told you on the program last week, 71 incidents involving firearms and security officers that weekend. This weekend so far, 56 incidents, including this incident coming out of Philadelphia, where a security officer shot a person outside or near a sports bar and grill. This is in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, on Castor Avenue. Police say the victim is in stable condition, hospitalized. The security officer is under investigation, according to police. They haven't made an arrest, but they are investigating, and it doesn't look good right now for the security officer. Down in Mississippi, Flowood, Mississippi, security officers working at Sanderson Farms, that is a chicken processing plant, one of the largest in the nation. Security there apprehended an employee after the employee got into a confrontation and stabbed another employee who is in serious condition. That employee has been identified as Lawrence Charles Gibson. He is charged with aggravated assault and currently is being held on $1 million. Police say that charge could be escalated to attempted murder. And the Flowood Police Department thanked Sanderson Farm Security for their quick response in securing Gibson so that no other employees would be injured, and in assisting the victim with medical care, according to Flowood Police. So kudos to the security department there at Sanderson Farms in Flowood, Mississippi. This incident occurring in Oak Lawn, Illinois, a suburb of Chicago. Police there responded Friday around 2 p.m. for a robbery at Richmond's Jewelers. Police say that 3 armed men came in and immediately confronted the armed security officer, disarming him. When an employee of the store resisted, they shot her multiple times and is in critical condition. The security officer was not injured, but his firearm was taken as well. Police are looking for several suspects, and they have put out a bolo for a vehicle, which you can see on our news blog at privateofficerbreakingnews.blogspot.com. A woman in Las Vegas now charged with attempted murder of 2 security officers after she was caught shoplifting, and the shoplifting turned into a resisting situation. Police say that Mercedes K shot herself and accidentally shot herself, obviously, and shot 2 security officers. She's been charged with 9 felonies, including attempted murder of 2 security officers, robbery, battery, assault, and discharging a firearm within an occupied structure. This happened at the world's largest gift shop, 2400 South Las Vegas Boulevard. And this person is also being held currently without bond in the Clark County Detention Center. Just a horrendous shooting at a domestic situation where police were attempting to serve a warrant. We now understand, this just coming into our office this morning, that a 3rd police officer in that incident was killed. 3 police officers and a canine dog all killed during the situation. 4 other police officers remain hospitalized. This is just a terrible, horrific situation. Lance Storch, 49, is currently being held on multiple counts of murder, attempted murder, and is being held without bond. In Soledad, California, police there are investigating after a uniformed off-duty security officer was getting into his vehicle at home when evidently someone tried to carjack him, and the off-duty security officer was shot multiple times. He is currently at an area hospital there suffering from gunshot wounds. Police don't have a suspect in that case, but they do have some leads in there looking for the suspect. A Kroger grocery store security officer who was employed by Allied University in Houston, Texas, now under investigation after video shows him grabbing onto a customer who he accused of shoplifting, then pepper spraying her and several other women who came to her aid. Police say that the woman was assaulted, verbally and physically abused, and the security guard also assaulted several others who had nothing to do with the situation. Police say that this case is under investigation. There is a video link at privateofficerbreakingnews.blogspot.com if you would like to take a look at it. I certainly have. It doesn't look good for Allied, and it's just another poor example of security supervision and training, and I'll leave it there. Rochester, New York, police have made an arrest in what was called a targeted murder of a security officer. Timothy Thomas, 31, has been charged with murder in the death of 42-year-old Orlando Santiago. They say that this was probably a revenge murder because the security officer had been involved in a fatal shooting a couple of years ago where the victim was the brother of this Thomas character who was arrested. Police say they believe that this was all a payback. The security officer was cleared of any wrongdoing and was not charged in that shooting. We are seeing, at least in the past year, we have seen at least 3 revenge murders. In fact, when this situation occurred, there was another murder of a TSA security officer in New York as well, in New York City, and another security officer that was murdered in Ohio. Police in all of those cases say this was a payback or revenge because an incident that occurred between the security officer and the shooter, or the security officer and family or friends of the shooter. You have to be on your toes 24/7 these days. Dallas police announcing this past week that they have changed the format of what calls they respond to. And we are hearing this every week. Another department no longer responding to low priority calls. The Dallas police chief announced, along with the city council this past week and the public safety committee, that in light of recent uptick in police response times, the low amount of vehicles, officers on duty at any one time, and the increase of high priority calls like shootings, police no longer are going to respond to those calls that don't need an immediate police officer on scene. They are going to use civilian personnel to take reports, and if the situation warrants an officer, police then will respond. Now, currently, about 3,100 police officers are employed by the Dallas Police. In 2014, 3,600 police officers were employed by the department, and Chief Eddie Garcia said that that's 500 officers less, and that does not take into consideration the number of officers that should be on the force in 2022. In a city such as Dallas, somewhere around 4,000 police officers would be required and are required according to a national standard. Police in Dallas say that they will make every attempt to respond to those calls needing immediate assistance. Many police departments no longer can guarantee how long it will take for their arrival. This is a situation that the security field, the security industry needs to be aware of. It's not going to change. Response times will continue to climb. We need to be prepared to be able to defend ourselves and to take care of the emergencies. And I talk about this almost every day. A new study shows that nearly 40% of law enforcement agencies around the country did not submit any data in 2021. The FBI requires, under the Uniform Crime Reporting UCR program, that all police departments, no matter the size or location, submit their crime data. But according to the FBI, many cities and towns did not include their information. The gap includes the nation's two largest cities by population, New York and LA, as well as most agencies in 5 of the 6 most populous states, California, New York, Illinois, Pennsylvania, and Florida, all not reporting the crime data. And this is very concerning as we use the crime data to show us what's happening and where resources are needed and funding and so forth. And it also helps us to have a clearer picture of the rise or fall in various crimes categories. Dallas police has arrested a security officer for shooting of a woman who died. Police say that the security officer, at the time that he fired into the vehicle of a woman, she was not a threat to anyone in the parking lot or any security officer. They've charged him with a lesser crime right now. However, those charges could be escalated. The security officer faces 3 counts of aggravated assault with a deadly weapon, but that case has been sent to the grand jury, and those charges could be escalated to murder. And, of course, we will be tracking this information. Another fatal shooting coming out of Louisville, Kentucky. Security was arrested for murder in that case. Now, the employer is also facing charges because they did not have a proper security license at the time the security officer was working. Alert Patrol out of Florida facing criminal and civil charges in that case as well. Police have applauded Pearl River Resort security in Philadelphia, Mississippi, after security personnel on patrol discovered a man molesting a vulnerable adult. Police there say security found Michael A. Talbert, 38, of Walnut Grove, in the stairwell, molesting another person who could not give consent. Sheriff Eric Clark said that the casino security staff took that man into custody, notified the sheriff's department. He faces multiple charges. Casino security say that when they saw the man in the stairwell, they noticed that he had been inappropriately touching someone who appeared not to be able to defend themselves. Security said that they took the man into custody after a good tussle. The sheriff's department, again, is commending the quick actions of the security staff at that casino. School shootings across the nation has reached a 20-year high in 2021. During the 2020-2021 school year, there were 93 school shootings in the U.S., a high not seen in 20 years, according to federal data cited in a report by the National Center for Education Statistics, NCES. Of those 93 shootings, 43 resulted in fatalities, while 50 saw injuries, according to the 31-page report, which was published by the NCES as part of a joint effort with the Bureau of Justice. According to the NCES, they define the school year as from July 1, 2020 through June 3 of 2021. The data show there were an additional 53 shootings at schools reported with no casualties. Walt Disney say a man posed as a security officer to steal a 10,000 Star Wars droid. Orange County Sheriff's Department was notified by security that 44-year-old David Proudfoot of Kissimmee, Florida, had entered the property disguised as a security officer. He has been charged with felony theft, receiving stolen property, 2 charges of grand theft in the 3rd degree, obstruction by false information, and scheming to defraud. Disney security witnessed Proudfoot pushing a cart at Epcot Resorts dressed as a security guard. At least 2 security officers have been shot during firework robberies. We do see this almost every year. La Vista, Nebraska, a security officer working at a fireworks tent was shot and hospitalized. He's currently in critical but good condition, stable condition. He's suffering from gunshots during a exchange of gunfire with the robbery suspect on Friday. La Vista Police Chief Bob Lawson said the robbery and shooting occurred at 84th and Brentwood. The 22-year-old security officer was able to return fire, but is in critical condition. Police say the suspect is a black male, and he fled on foot, and he has not been arrested. The second shooting occurred in New York State. Police there also saying that the security officer was working at a tent, fireworks tent, in the evening hours when a robbery attempt occurred. No arrest there. The security officer has been hospitalized. No other information coming out of there. And like I said, we do see this, unfortunately, almost every year. And you would not think that a fireworks tent would attract such violence and robberies, but they do. Coming out of Indianapolis, the court has ruled that Protection Plus Incorporated owes 215 security officers overtime wages. The court ruled that the overtime wages had not been paid to the security officers who patrol Indianapolis International Airport grounds. They guard local businesses, they provide round-the-clock traffic control in areas, and they were not paid for overtime work. This litigation originally brought through the U.S. Department of Labor. As required by a June 7, 2022, consent judgment entered in the U.S. District Court of the Southern District of Indiana, Protection Plus Incorporated and employer Raymond Stanley is to pay $185,459 in wages and an equal amount in liquidated damages to the Department of Labor for distribution to the workers. The employer also paid a civil money penalty of $69,540 for knowingly violating federal wage laws. Similar violations were levied against the same company in 2018. A Texas security officer fatally shot a man trespassing and possibly stealing copper and other items from a closed paper mill. This happened in Lufkin, Texas. The Angelina County Sheriff's Office is investigating that fatal shooting. It was at the old paper mill on State Highway 103. Now, the Sheriff's Department says they, from time to time, do receive calls of trespassers and people who were in the act of stealing copper, and they've made a few arrests out there. The sheriff confirms that the several arrests made previously. The suspect, who is dead, has been identified as Kenneth Holly, 56, of Houston. The Sheriff's Department is continuing investigating this shooting to see if any charges should be brought. A security company in New Jersey stepped forward and they donated a bunch of bulletproof backpacks to the school district in Tom Rivers Superior Protection Professionals, which is owned by a former police officer, a retired police officer, and his son, donated 20 bulletproof backpacks to the Tom River School District. Our company was formed with the sole purpose of protecting people, company owner and retired Toms River police officer Kelly Conklin said. We are proud to be able to stand here today and help protect people with these bulletproof backpacks. This has been a horrendous past week for law enforcement. 5 police officers were killed in the line of duty. The number of law enforcement deaths have increased this year and in the last few years, as has security officers. We are seeing more and more deadly resistance, and it's very concerning. Coming out of Manhattan, New York, a brawl involving at least 60 people upon a Carnival cruise. NYPD was called, the U.S. Coast Guard was called, but they couldn't. Neither one could enter the cruise ship. The cruise ship was flagged, Panamanian flagged cruise ship, operated by the Panamanian Incorporated Cruise Line, and therefore they were sovereign. Eventually, the 60 people stopped fighting, and the ship docked in New York City. A bill is currently being considered in Pennsylvania to reduce the number of training hours required of campus police officers by the Pennsylvania State System of Higher Education. It has already passed the State House. It has been referred to the State Senate and to the Law and Justice Committee. The House passed it 200-0 to approve House Bill 1988, which would place campus police departments and campus police officers under a different law that would reduce the number of hours required. Rather than going through the Pennsylvania Municipal Police Officers Education, Training, and Commission for certification, they would receive their commission through an education committee, which would also be a basic police officer type training. They say that much of the police officer training that they currently receive is not needed or necessary, and also it hinders or prevents some applicants from being able to go through and pass the full police academy. So we're going to follow that, and we'll be reporting back on that as well. A very unique proposal, and now actually it's going to happen. Jonesburg, Michigan, a very small town, has decided to try something new, and it's only been done in one other state, and that's Washington. Police there, very small police department, are going to begin working 48 hours on and 96 hours off. They say the schedule is similar to what some fire and EMS agencies do, and that it has been used successfully at that police agency in Washington State. This is a very small police department. They're hiring several more police officers so that all of the shifts will be full. It does work in some situations. I just can't see it working in law enforcement, but they're going to give it a go. They're going to give it a try, and we're going to track it, and we'll let you know how it's working. We're going to take another quick break. When we come back, we're going to be talking about domestic violence and a situation that occurred where a security officer interrupted a domestic violence situation. He was killed, another person was killed, and the shooter then committed suicide. We'll be right back. You're listening to the Private Officer Beat Radio. Are you looking for the finest private security officer training in the Charlotte metropolitan area? Do you need PPS qualifications in armed or unarmed training? Or maybe you're over there across the line in South Carolina and you need the SLED training. Well, we've got the right training at the right time for you. Premier Training Academy, located at 5624 Executive Center Drive, Suite 142 in metropolitan Charlotte, North Carolina. Give them a call today, 704-806-4933. They also offer firearms training, personal protection, first aid and CPR, and so much more. Call John at 704-806-4933.
Why take a chance? Why risk a mistake? Why say something? We all have reasons why we choose to ignore the things that give us pause, that seem out of place, that don't feel right. The word why can either paralyze us or empower us to stand up and protect what we love. So if you see something, why do you say something?
I see safe for my family.
I see safe for my friends.
I see safe so that they are safe.
We see safe for each other.
I see safe because all of this matters.
We all have something worth protecting, a why that unifies this community we're all a part of. So protect your everyday. Report suspicious activity to local authorities. If you see something, say something.
Involved in this domestic dispute at this apartment complex were the parents of 6 children, and the security guard died trying to do the right thing. The shooting took place near the entrance of this apartment building within the sprawling Crescent Circle complex in North San Jose around 1 o'clock Sunday morning. Vishnu Vathana, who lives above the entrance, says his wife heard the shots and screaming first.
She thought she heard gunshots, and she heard somebody crying and wailing and stuff, so she woke me up, and I told her maybe she was having a bad dream, because like the moment she woke up, and as I was saying that, I heard another gunshot.
Police say what they heard was a husband and wife arguing, and the first shot was the husband shooting a responding security guard.
I'm sure he's trying to do the right thing, right? See somebody in distress and wants to go help and intervene. And unfortunately, the suspect committed a very heinous act and killed him.
Police say the husband then shot his wife before killing himself, all with their 6 children still inside a nearby apartment.
These kids are going to need, support and help more than anything. Very traumatic experience.
The complex manager issued a statement expressing deep sadness for the lives lost and are offering counseling to employees. Police say there was no known history of domestic violence with the couple, but point out the husband, who had 1 prior burglary conviction, used a gun with the serial number scratched off, making it hard to trace.
It's really sad and scary that people have access to guns so easily, that a domestic dispute could lead to loss of life so quickly, and unknown people also get shot.
The medical examiner has not released the names of those killed. The 6 children are now with their grandmother, the mother of their mom.
This is breaking news coming out of Illinois. The city of Highland Park, a July 4th parade has ended with 6 dead and 24 shot in a mass shooting. Police are reporting more than 24 are hospitalized. Lake County Sheriff's Office Deputy Chief Christopher Cavelli said at a press conference just moments ago that the suspect was between 18 and 20 years old, a white male with long black hair who should be considered armed and dangerous and is not yet in custody. Currently, Illinois Governor J.B. Pritzker said he is closely monitoring the situation. The state police are also on scene in Highland Park assisting local authorities. The shooting, according to law enforcement, occurred during the parade. Attendees fled the scene, leaving behind chairs, baby strollers, blankets, coolers, etc. According to this report, police from multiple agencies, EMS from multiple agencies are on scene. The big picture, according to local authorities, is that this shooting occurred suddenly and without warning. We will keep you informed on the latest information as it becomes known. This is another horrific, just terrible situation that did not have to happen. Today, in the bottom half of our radio show, we're talking about domestic violence. As with the last few weeks of our radio show, while preparing for this topic, I did take a look at how many times I've discussed this subject during the years with the radio, on the radio program. We talked about it 6 different times. We've put it in our training. We've offered the training free. Domestic violence is something that is on the rise, like most crime, and it's something that happens suddenly. As you heard just a moment ago in San Jose, California, at a local, upscale, peaceful neighborhood apartment complex, a man shot and killed a security officer and then killed his wife before committing suicide. This was not something to be expected any place, but certainly not in an upscale area such as the Crescent Circle complex in North San Jose. It occurred, the shooting, according to police, at around 1 a.m. on a Sunday, and this happened back last month in June. Now, a security officer heard some arguing, and police have put together what they believe to be a scenario of what happened. According to law enforcement, there was at least 2 gunshots and some arguing. Police say that the security officer had responded to some type of disturbance, but didn't quite know, according to police, probably what was going on. The husband began arguing with the security officer who, I'm sure he was just thinking he was doing his job. He saw someone in distress. He wanted to help. He wanted to intervene. He wanted to do his job. But the suspect committed a heinous act instead and killed him. Police said the husband then shot his wife, the mother of his 6 children, before killing himself. All of their 6 children were still inside a nearby apartment when this took place. Those kids are left without both of their parents. There was no history of domestic violence with the couple. There was no police responses to the apartment time and time again about quarrels and fights and domestic abuse. But as we all know, this type of loss of life can happen quickly, and with domestic violence, things flare up quickly and suddenly with no indicators. And tragically, a security officer on duty trying to do his job was gunned down. There are tens of thousands of calls each year across the country for domestic violence situations. And they are sometimes hard to determine if this is a true domestic violence situation or just a disturbance. So going back in my radio programs, I spotted one show that I did over 10 years ago, which really applies to this situation. And I want to play that piece for you. But before I do that, I want to preface this with sometimes both police and security are so quick, so in a hurry to get there, to help someone, to get something under control, to take someone into custody, that we don't slow down long enough to do what I call an overview, a scene safety check. And we need to do that more. We need to not be in such a hurry, and we need to stop, listen. And if we hear violent screaming, if we hear gunshots, if we hear large commotions involving a lot of people and we're all alone, well, the right thing to do is call 911 and back off. I know we want to get there. We want to resolve that situation. We want to help that person, but it's not always possible. And I say this over and over and over again. We can only do what's within our limits. We're not superheroes, not even police, or Superman, or Batman, or some other superhero. Back away, assess the situation, call law enforcement, keep them informed, stay on the phone, give them the information as it plays out. And when the cavalry arrives, then you go in. I believe a lot of security officers would still be alive today if that they would follow that as a strict protocol. And I'm not putting blame anywhere because certainly the only blame should be on the shooter. Let's play this training on domestic violence that I did a number of years ago. But before I do that, I want to give you a few pointers on what to look for to determine if this is domestic violence. And I'm hesitant on doing that because violence is violence. I don't care if it's between husband and wife, girlfriend and girlfriend, boyfriends. It doesn't matter to me. Violence is violence. And our strict protocol should be that we're going to look at what's happening overall and then make an assessment and then notify law enforcement. According to the Domestic Violence Center, there are 10 warning signs. Sometimes these are easy to spot and sometimes not. Insult and intimidation, violent vocalism, extreme jealousy, insecurity, and controlling behavior, isolation from friends and family, unwanted sexual contact of any kind, explosive temper, putting the person down, humiliation, constantly monitoring social media activities, location, GPS coordinates on the cell phone, invasions of privacy, leaving and telling that person not to go anywhere, not to be in communication with anybody, a person abusing alcohol or drugs, threatening or causing physical violence, scratches, bruises of any type. And let me just say this, and again, I mean no harm to anyone, but the fact is, in law enforcement, you see the same victims over and over again being abused, and yet when you do make an arrest, they don't show up in court to testify against the abuser, or they drop all charges. And that just continues the cycle. So let me play this for you, and we're going to follow up with a secondary domestic violence officer response training in the upcoming weeks. The bottom line, folks, is to stay safe. Keep your head on a swivel, officer awareness at all times, and don't do more or don't try to do more than is humanly possible. All right, let's take a listen here to the domestic violence training, and we'll be back here shortly.
We do want to go in to our main course. We do want to go into the introduction to domestic violence, responding to domestic violence. Many people, including security, don't understand this topic either. But it is a growing criminal act. More and more people are involved in domestic violence. It doesn't matter who you are or where you come from. You can be a victim or you can be the aggressor in a domestic violence case. As a private security person, law enforcement officer, you're going to be involved in these situations, responding to them, hopefully not on the other side of the coin, hopefully not the suspect, but or the victim, but you're going to be involved in the actual response of these incidents.
Dad, he put you down on the floor. He just slapped Mommy.
What's the matter?
Domestic violence can happen anytime, any place. There is no age or gender specific. It can happen to those who are wealthy and those who are poor. It can happen at a school, an office building, a shopping mall, or in the privacy of a home. As a private security person, you're going to be on patrol. You're going to get the call. You're going to be responding to that situation. Do you know what domestic violence is? Do you know how to respond? Do you know how to act? Do you know what course of action to take? Do you know how to protect the victim? Do you know how to subdue the suspect?
I was also going to have charges on him first.
It's a routine evening for Lieutenant Brian Garrett. Only 90 minutes into his shift with the Polk County, Florida Sheriff's Department, and 3 domestic violence calls have already come in.
How many domestic violence calls do you get on most nights? Might not be unusual to have 6 or 8. Is this the first time this has happened?
22-year-old Shannon Way is 8 months pregnant with her boyfriend's baby.
He got pissed off at me and said I was attacking him, and then he started hitting me.
It's estimated 1.3 million women of all classes, all ethnic groups in the U.S. are assaulted by a partner every year. 1 in every 4 women will be on the receiving end of domestic violence at some point in their life. Teenagers aren't immune. 1 in 5 high school girls have been physically or sexually abused by a date. The latest poster child for domestic violence is superstar R&B singer Rihanna. Last week, her boyfriend, hip-hop singer Chris Brown, was charged with 2 felonies after allegedly punching, choking, and biting her. But reports say the couple has since reconciled.
A lot of officers said they would rather go to a robbery in progress than a domestic violence situation. Because you just never know what's going on.
He had kicked me in my head.
This 911 call was made after Barbara Hurt's boyfriend beat her after he came home from a court-ordered anger management class.
This is his fire pit.
37 years old, Hurt says her boyfriend, Anthony Civitarese, would beat her, beg for forgiveness, she'd take him back, and the cycle of abuse would start over.
He said he would kill me, cut me up with the chainsaw in little bitty pieces, and put me in that fire pit.
Court records show the violence only escalates.
He's cracked my ribs or broken some ribs. He's busted my eye. I can't count how many times. My nose has been broken and busted and bitten.
Now in jail for domestic battery. Civitarese will be out next month.
What happens when he gets out of jail?
I have to change my identity, my name, my location where I stay, my hair, my looks. I have to just get away from him.
This time, Barbara Hurt says it's over.
You going to press charges?
I don't know.
As for Shannon Way,
right now at this point, I don't know what I'm going to do.
But victim advocates insist there is something people can do. Don't blame yourself. And ask for help, because domestic violence is a crime.
And domestic violence is a crime. And it is a growing crime. And many of you probably have been a victim of it. Somewhere along the way, you may have even been the suspect, the aggressor in a case. Depending on when you grew up, depending on your generation, it may have been in your home. You may have been almost to the point of being immune to it because it happens so frequently. You'd be surprised how many people are victims of domestic and sexual assault. More than 33% of domestic violence cases do not get reported according to a federal report. A third of all those assaulted never make a report, never call police, never get intervention. What is domestic violence? Do you know? Do you have an understanding of it? Domestic violence is physical and emotional abuse. Not by just anyone, not by your neighbor, not by the stranger, not by a coworker, not by your landlord, not by the person that lives next to you, not by some relative. No, domestic violence is an abuse perpetrated by one person on another person that they are involved in some type of relationship. That relationship may be boyfriend, girlfriend. It may be husband, wife. It could be father, daughter, mother, daughter, mother, son. It could be sisters and brothers. Here's the key element in most statutes, just so that you'll know the difference between a domestic violence assault and a regular assault. Here's the key ingredients in the language of the law in most every jurisdiction. In order to be charged with domestic violence, those two people in the relationship, the husband, the wife, the brother and sister, the boyfriend, girlfriend, almost always must live under the same roof, or they may be separated or dating to be specifically charged with domestic violence. If they are just acquaintances, if they are just co-workers, if they are just neighbors, they do not qualify for domestic violence charges. It will be regular, simple, or aggravated assault depending on how it was perpetrated, whether or not the person was armed. People involved in domestic violence incidents can be married or not married. They can be heterosexual, gay, or lesbian. They can be related or not related. It's important that you understand the difference, because there are some states that have specific language in the law which outlines what you must do when you come upon a domestic violence situation. It's just like coming upon a child abuse situation. In some states, they have report requirements where you must report it. So you have to know the law. Once again, we're talking about knowing your state-specific law, your statutes in your community, so that you understand how it is that you're supposed to respond, what it is you're supposed to do, and whether or not the assault or the abuse qualifies under the DV law, the domestic violence law, in your state. What is domestic violence? What is abuse? Well, it's just somebody hitting somebody, I guess. It's just like, slap the old lady upside the head. Here are some of the examples of abuse that qualify under the domestic violence laws. Name calling or put downs. Keeping a partner from contacting family or friends. Withholding money from them. Stopping a partner from getting a job or keeping a job or leaving the home. Threatening or committing physical harm, sexual assault, stalking, intimidation. These are key language, words, and phrases used in most state statutes to define the violation, the criminal act of domestic violence. If you are on patrol of an apartment complex, a shopping mall, a department store, an office complex, or any property, private property, that you're in control of, and you see somebody having a little spat, somebody being assaulted, somebody who is being harassed, it's your job to investigate. It's your job to get involved. It's your job to get in the middle. You might have to call 911 first for backup. You might have to call from assistance. But you'll have to determine whether or not these people know each other, whether or not they're related, whether or not, this is a domestic violence incident or just an assault, a disturbance, or a couple of people just having a disagreement and they separate and go on their way. It'll be your responsibility to define whether or not this incident, this situation, qualifies for domestic violence laws. Violence includes any physical assault, hitting, pushing, shoving, abuse, unwanted force, stalking, emotional stress, psychological and financial abuse. That's all violence under many statutes. Violence will take many forms. Some you'll see instantly, like somebody smacks them in the head. Somebody's pushing them around, and you're right there, and you can see it. That, you have a clear observation, a clear understanding. An assault has taken place. This is a boyfriend-girlfriend, a husband and wife situation. Sometimes you can't tell. Sometimes you don't know. You're not sure. Are they stalking? Sometimes you roll up on something. Sometimes you see something. You're not sure what's going on. You don't know it's a domestic violence, but you know it might be an assault.
Today released the dramatic 911 call made yesterday afternoon as a man chased down his estranged wife, then shot into her van, hitting 3 people inside. Richard Guidry of Havelock is charged with attempted murder in the shooting. It happened just north of Pocahontas. The sheriff's office says Guidry chased his wife, Holly, in her minivan, then rammed it before firing at the van's windshield. Authorities say his wife, Holly Guidry, seen in this picture here, one of their 3 sons, 2-year-old Tristan, and another man, Scott Blasey, were all shot. Holly Guidry's 911 call caught it all on tape as it unfolded. Channel 5 Eyewitness News reporter Stephanie Engelson is live in the Satellite Center with the story. Stephanie, good evening.
Good evening, Chris. It certainly is a dramatic tape, but the 911 call started off with a very calm Holly Guidry. She first tells the dispatcher that she has a restraining order against Richard Guidry. She then gives a clear description as to where she's driving her van. That's when things get pretty intense.
And he's following me. He's very close behind me.
Okay, where are you driving, Holly?
He hit me.
Okay.
I'm sorry.
Can you stay on the line with me, Holly?
I'm okay.
Holly, stay on the line with me. Holly, stay on the line.
But Holly did not stay on the line. The dispatcher called out Holly's name. She was answered by silence. At that point, Holly and the dispatcher lost their phone connection for an unknown amount of time. Then Holly calls back.
Scott, come on, Mother.
Holly, is this you, Holly?
I just shot. My boyfriend just shot my son.
She just what? Showed a gun? Where are you at, Holly?
Holly then gives directions to her van, and that's when the dispatcher tells officers what they're heading into.
Power Center Home has a weapon. He does have a weapon 1 mile north of Power Center Home.
He just took off. He shot me in the arm. He shot
you in the arm?
He shot me in the head, and I don't know how long he's going to die.
Many times, domestic violence will start very slowly, very quietly, very subtle. Oh, it may start just as a few whispers. It may start as a slight argument. And sometimes it starts as an explosion. Walking through the mall, the apartment complex, we've all seen people having a few spats. We've all seen the arguments. We've all seen the disturbances. Male and female, usually. Boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife. But it could be brother and sister. It could be father and daughter. It could be gay or lesbian. When we see this, when we are responding, when we're called out to investigate as the first responder on private property, we have to be able to quickly decipher what's going on, just like we taught in making the call when seconds count. Again, just like that, things can blow up. They can go from good to bad in a heartbeat. And you got to know how to respond. You got to know what to do. Domestic violence can happen any place, anywhere, to anyone. Recently in the news, Ric Flair, a famous wrestler, is accused of domestic violence. Rihanna is assaulted by her music star boyfriend, Charlie Sheen. We all know him. Mel Gibson, recently. Many people don't understand the ramifications of domestic violence. It's not a problem in my community. It's not a problem in my city. It's not a problem on my property. Oh, yes, it is. It's everywhere. According to the Michigan State Police, a woman is killed by a partner or a former partner in the state of Michigan once a week at least. More than 500,000 domestic violence victims in the U.S. in 2008 were injured. Domestic violence happens everywhere, anywhere, at any time. Have a clear understanding of the domestic violence laws in your state. If you are patrolling a private property, if you are a security officer, a constable, a special police officer, you have a responsibility, an obligation to keep people safe. Nobody deserves to be abused. Nobody deserves to be hit. Nobody deserves to be stalked. Nobody deserves that type of abuse. And it's a crime. And it's up to us to protect those people on the property that we have been hired to protect. Recently, in Florida, a woman who owned a hair salon had reported a number of times that her ex-boyfriend had stalked her, had threatened to kill her. He'd even come to her business. A security guard making the rounds in a golf cart had been involved, at least on one occasion, possibly two, with disturbances involving this person. He spotted the man enter the premises with a can of gasoline. The man poured it on the estranged girlfriend, lit her on fire, and killed her while the security guard sat in his golf cart in the parking lot. That's not protection, folks. That's not doing your job. That's not protecting the people that you've been hired to protect. That's called culpability. That's called action, cause for action against you and your company. Recognize the signs of abuse. Recognize the signs of stalking. Recognize the signs of what domestic violence is. Yeah, it's true, or it does appear to be true, that many victims of domestic violence oftentimes don't report it, and when they do, they don't want their spouse, their boyfriend locked up or their girlfriend arrested. And there's a lot of different reasons why. Sometimes they're the breadwinner, sometimes they pay the rent, sometimes they are the sole means of financial support. Sometimes the victim feels like they can't make it on their own. There's a lot of different reasons, and we don't have time to get in all of them tonight. But our job isn't to be the judge. Our job is to protect and serve those who have hired us and who we are there to protect. Oftentimes, alcohol and drugs can be involved. Even mental illness causes domestic violence. It's not something that's going to go away. It's on the increase as many people are unemployed, many people are losing their homes, being foreclosed on, many people going bankrupt, many people losing their business, many people losing their livelihood, relationships are falling apart, a lot of stress on people who are unemployed and financially broke. The numbers for domestic violence is skyrocketing in some areas and increasing in all other areas. According to the National Domestic Violence Foundation, 1 in 3 American women have been physically or sexually abused by a husband, a boyfriend, or another male partner. As private security personnel on the front line, as private security officers working in apartments and shopping centers and other areas where people are out and about, we're going to run into domestic violence situations frequently. There are 2 things that are extremely dangerous in the law enforcement field. One of them are car stops, traffic stops. You don't know who's behind the wheel. You don't know who you stopped. You could have been a bank robber, a murderer. You don't know what he just did. Extremely dangerous. Every traffic stop is potentially a deadly situation. And domestic violence is the second most dangerous incident that law enforcement or private security even can be involved in. You don't know when tempers fly, when adrenaline is flowing, when people are angry and mad, when things are happening, when people are hurting, when people are just off the wall, when people have been drinking, when people are high. All of these things combined can be a bomb waiting to explode. Many victims understand this. They don't call the police because they know that someone's going to get hurt or even killed. Responding to a domestic violence call or rolling up on one or getting involved in one can be very dangerous and deadly for you. And you need to know that. You need to be able to do scenes. This is the foundation, folks. Everything that we teach, everything that I teach, leads up to all the things that you're going to be involved in. We teach the basics, the foundations, scene size up. knowing your laws, knowing your scope of authority, making the call when seconds count. All of this leads up to being ready, being prepared to handle these type of cases, these type of calls, these type of situations. And if you've got a great foundation of training and knowledge, then when you do get involved in a domestic violence incident, when you do get involved in a robbery, when you do get involved in a shooting, you're going to have the basic information. You're going to be ready. You're going to have all the tools in your toolbox to respond appropriately. But if you don't have that foundation, your house is going to crumble. You're going to crumble because you're not going to know what to do, how to respond, how to act. You're not going to know the laws. You're not going to know how to defend yourself. You're not going to know the statutes. You're not going to know zip, zilch, zero because you're not prepared. Domestic violence is volatile. It's very dangerous, deadly to the victims, to the law enforcement, and to people who get in the way of the aggressor, of the violent person. You think for one moment he's going to stand there and let you tell him to get out of his own house? You think for one moment he's going to stand there and let you say, hey, I'm going to let your wife, your girlfriend get some stuff and walk out of here, and we're going to, buddy, he ain't going to do it. You don't believe me? Ask any cop friend you got. Watch a couple of episodes of Cops. Domestic abuse, domestic violence, domestic situations are dangerous, deadly. They're going to fight, especially if they've been drinking, and you're going to need to be ready to defend yourself until backup gets there. It doesn't matter if it's at the shopping mall, the apartment complex, or what it is. I want to tell you, I've been there before without trying to toot my own horn. I've knocked on the door and had them come lunging at me with a knife before I could even get two words out. I've had them immediately swing on me before even I began the investigation. They turn their violence away from the victim and against law enforcement, against security, against the guy in uniform who's trying to stand between him and the person he's abusing, the person who's the victim. You have to be prepared. According to the United States Department of Justice National Crime Survey in 2005, the most dangerous time for a law enforcement officer, and I'm going to put us in that category, the most dangerous time when they can be outside of their vehicle is in a domestic violence situation, responding to a domestic incident. Why? Because like a traffic stop, you never know what's going to go wrong. You never know what the person's going to do, how they're going to respond to you being there, how they're going to respond to the uniform, how they're going to respond to you trying to separate them. Because all they see is that you're getting in the way. All they see is that you're trying to stop what they're wanting to do. And there's a lot of people in this world who look like, who act like, who normally are like everyday Joes, churchgoers, politicians, friendly neighbors, and then something happens, and they blow a top. And they take it out on their family, their kids, their husband, their wife. And that's when you get involved. Domestic violence is real. It's dangerous. It's a crime. And so is stalking. You need to understand what the laws are and what the dangers are. You need to understand how to respond to it, how to react to it, and what to do if you arrive on the scene before police. If you're patrolling an apartment complex, I can guarantee you 99.9% of the time, you're going to be at the doorstep of the crime, at the doorstep of the domestic violence before the police ever arrive, probably before they ever get dispatched. And you're going to need to know what it is that you're supposed to be doing. It's nice to have backup. It's nice to have two-way radios. It's nice to have all the gadgets. It's nice to have the nice gun belt, the nice maze, the baton. It's nice to have all that equipment. But if you don't know how to use them, if you don't know how to communicate, if you don't know what the laws are, it's a waste of your time. Might as well not even go to the call. Just sit in the guard shack and wait for the police. I'm sure that all of you have heard, or most of you have heard, of PPOs. Most jurisdictions have personal protection orders or a court order. Domestic violence victims can go to the court and ask that a restraining order or a PPO be issued. What that does is a copy of it is served on the suspect, on the aggressor. He's told to stay away from the victim. Don't call her, don't contact her. And the victim is also required under the law to stay away from the aggressor, the attacker. If either one of them are found together, they could both be arrested for violating the PPO. So if you're ever involved in a domestic situation, that's one of the questions that you need to ask the victim. Ma'am, sir, do you have a PPO in place? Do you have a personal protection order in place? If they say yes, they're required to have a copy with them. Verify that it's valid, that it has not expired. If the suspect is there, he can be taken into custody right then on the violation of the PPO, the personal protection order, the restraining order. He can be arrested on that charge alone. He doesn't have to commit any other crime. He doesn't have to assault the victim again. He doesn't have to do anything. He just has to be within a certain area to be charged with violating the PPO. Most jurisdictions, most states, that's enough to put you in jail for at least 72 hours or more until your next court date. You're not going to get out in 10 or 15 or 20 minutes on bond. In most places, they put a hold on you for violating the PPO. So the victim knows they'll be protected until the guy goes or the woman goes to court. So if you're on the scene of a domestic violence situation, make sure that you're asking about the PPO or the restraining order. Do you have a copy? Did you get one? Let the officer know as soon as they arrive. I've got a copy of the PPO right here. The suspect's in custody. Take him downtown or take her downtown, whatever the case might be.